Bon and a goal joining you on Tuesday. Not too long now to that big game against Villarreal on Thursday, but so much stuff going on in the news at the moment. It's almost hard to get excited by that game against Villarreal and to think too far ahead towards that game against Villarreal, because all the talk at the moment is about potential Arsenal takeover. I'm sure I don't need to explain anymore. You've seen it all. You've read it all. Daniel Ek, the billionaire, the owner of Spotify, CEO of Spotify, wants to buy Arsenal, has teamed up with the Invincibles, or three of them, to try and get this deal done, to try and tempt Stan Kroenke into selling the club. Been lots of talk about it. Everyone interested. I know you're all interested. So I thought I'd pop on now and just come on and answer some questions and talk about it and debate it, because I know how interesting this is to Arsenal fans, how much they're how much they want to know about it. And so I thought I'd just open it up, have a little chat for 20 minutes or so on a Tuesday lunchtime, and then we can all get on with our day. So feel free to ask me any questions that you want. Let me know what you think. Is it a good idea for Arsenal to be taken over by Daniel Ek? Would you want that to happen? Do you think Stan Kroenke should stay? Let me know, and we can all have a bit of a discussion about it. I've got about 20 minutes or so now to talk about it. So let's get going. Matthew there says, how realistic is the takeover? Well, my honest opinion is it, and given the opinion of a lot of people that I've spoken to in the last 24 hours or so, I still think it's unlikely. I have to admit, Stan Kroenke, the stance hasn't changed. People at Arsenal don't expect his stance to have changed. He's still in it for long haul, and he has no intention of selling. Now, whether that will change when an actual official bid comes in, and if someone puts enough money on the table to make him alter that opinion, then that remains to be seen. But as far as I'm aware, right now, as it stands, and we have to remember that it has no bid has gone in yet, that Stan Kroenke does not want to sell Arsenal. Josh Cronkie said it last week at the fans forum that they have no intention of selling, and as far as I'm aware, that hasn't changed. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. If someone comes in and smacks down a load of money on the table and offers it to them, that might change their opinion. But right now, as far as I'm aware, and if you're going to ask me, do I think it will happen, then I still think it's unlikely. I just can't see Stan Kroenke selling, I have to say. Let's have a look. Craig says, love the idea of Ek taking over alongside three Invincibles, but what roles would Henry, Bergkamp and Vieira take up at the club? Exactly. I mean, to be honest, Craig, I can't answer that at the moment because I don't think anyone really knows. I still think you're looking at this, look, what are those three going to bring to the table in terms of the takeover? They're not going to bring money to the table because their combined wealth would probably cover about a month's worth of payroll at Arsenal. So it's not going to be anything financial. They're all coaches, they're not involved in governments of football. They're not involved in running a club and finances and that sort of thing. They're coaches. All of them are coaches. Vieira's a coach, a coach looking for a job. Henry's a coach, and a very good pundit, obviously. And Dennis Bergkamp likes working in academy system. He's done that at Ajax, and he's been out of job for quite some time now. So not going to bring much else to the table other than their names. I mean, that's the big thing. That's what, if Daniel Ek or anyone interested in coming in and taking over at Arsenal, you want to win the PR battle when it comes to Stan Kroenke. And what better way to do that than bring in some Invincibles? So I think that is what their major role is. I'm sure there will be something there will be involved going forward should this all prove to be successful. But I think for now, the big involvement with them is just the fact that their name's there and they're giving the back into this potential takeover. And that's certainly going to help with you guys, with me, with the fans, everyone connected with Arsenal. Would Spotify be the new sponsor of Arsenal if it went through? I don't know. I'm afraid that's impossible for me to answer. I have absolutely no idea. Arsenal are locked into a long-term contract with Emirates at the moment. So I don't think if it was, it would be in the future. It wouldn't be straight away. Abdullah says, hi Charles, there is no question that KSC have performed terribly so far, but do they have big plans for the future? Well, Josh Cronkie certainly says they do. He says again in their fans forum that he was excited about the plans that they've got for the summer. Those plans haven't changed because of everything that's gone on with the Super League. And you have to say, look, I mean, as much as I want Arsenal to have a better owner than Stan Kroenke, you have to say, it's not that he hasn't allowed Arsenal to spend a lot of money recently, because they have spent a lot of money recently. It may not have been his money, it may have been the club's money, but they have spent a lot. They've just spent it terribly. They've wasted so much money in the transfer market in the last 10 years or so under Stan Kroenke's watch. And maybe you can put that down to it being his fault because he hasn't brought in people good enough to know where the money should be spent or how much players should be valued at, that sort of thing. So you can point the finger at the blame to the owners for that. But in terms of allowing the club to spend the money, you have to say, certainly, maybe not in the last 10 years, but certainly in the last 7 years, since basically the Mesut Ozil signing, Arsenal spent an awful lot of money. They've just spent it really, really badly. So I can't really complain too much about that from the Cronky's point of view. But there's still plenty more other things that you can complain about. Matteo Flamini is worth 30 billion. He's not worth 30 billion pounds. That's a bit of a rumor. It's just not. It's not the case. There's potential for his company to grow to that sort of level should everything go right. But he's not worth that sort of money now. He doesn't have that sort of money in his bank account. Any updates on Lacazette and Luiz? Not on the two strikers. In terms of Luiz, he's back training. I expect him to be involved on Thursday night. Andrea says, if Cronkie does sell and we have a new owner, do you think the board will stay with Arteta? I mean, who knows? It'd be a different board, you'd think. If they came in, you'd see some of the current board would go out. Certainly, Tim Lewis, who's Cronky's guys, who's been put on the board recently, he would go if the new board came in. And maybe that's what you're looking at, a Dennis Bergkamp type figure. He could come in on the board level, that sort of thing. So it'd be a completely new board. So it's impossible to say right now, would they want to stick with Arteta or not? Because it'd be a completely different thing. Sorry if you've already said this. How long do you think any takeover would take to go through? I mean, it depends on Stan Kroenke. If he's willing to accept a bid that comes in, it could all happen relatively quickly. So it all just depends on Stan Kroenke's stance. Or if Stan Kroenke has absolutely no intention of selling, which, in my opinion, and what I've heard, he doesn't, then it could last, once the official bid comes in, it could be thrown out the window straight away. Kind of similar to what we saw with Usmanov. Remember when Usmanov launched his last bid for Arsenal? That didn't last very long, did it? Because Stan Kroenke immediately said he's not accepting this offer. It it got rejected, and that was it. The takeover lasted not long. So I think we'll know one way or another when this official bid comes in, and it hasn't yet. Steve Wilson, what next for the fans if this takeover bid fails? What else can we do as fans to get rid of Cronky? You can just keep up the pressure, plain and simple. I think what we saw at the weekend or on Friday night, that was only the beginning, wasn't it? I think we're going to see more of these protests. I think we're going to see it before most games now. It seems like that's the sort of momentum. I don't think we'll see it quite at the scale that we saw on Friday, but it certainly feels like there's going to be more and more of these protests. And I also think when you look at the Arsenal Supporters Trust and the supporters groups who are getting together to try and keep the pressure on Stan Kroenke, they're not so much looking at just at the protests, they're looking more at what they can do at government level. Can they change the legislation that exists when it comes to football ownership? That's their long-term goal. When you speak to anyone at the Arsenal Supporters Trust, the long-term goal is always to get fan representation at board level, have a say in ownership, change the rules that we see currently that exist with England that can let one all-powerful figure have control of this clubs and try and take it down the route that Stan Kroenke did last week. Or can you get fans involved to ensure that that sort of thing doesn't happen again? And that is what they're putting pressure on the government to put through. That is what the government have seemed to have committed to. And now that's what that government review that is being led by Tracy Crouch now is going to be led on over the coming weeks. Is there a coincidence with Spotify increasing their membership? I lost that. I've lost that. I think. Oh, there it is. Is there a coincidence with Spotify increasing their prices for the membership? Who knows? It certainly could be a good way of burying that bad news that came out yesterday. A lot of people have certainly linked it together. Now, I've been speaking to people over in Sweden in the last couple of days, and I've been speaking a lot about trying to learn more about Daniel Ek and the sort of character he is. And I'm told he's not someone who's in it for PR. He's someone who tries to steer away a lot of the time from being in the spotlight. It's not something he tends to do that often just for the sake of it. So people that know him and know how he operates don't really see this as just some big PR move, because it's what he's always tried to sort of steer away from. He doesn't like being the centre in the limelight. So I don't think it's a PR move. I think it's genuine. I think he's going to have a go, but ultimately I think he's probably going to be unsuccessful. Let's have a look. Hi Charles, wouldn't it be the perfect time for the Cronkies to sell with a pandemic, money losses, the ESL fiasco and the protest? I mean, it would. That's why I think he's probably made a move from now, Daniel. You're kind of looking at it and you're thinking, this is an owner, Stan Kroenke, who's never wanted to sell Arsenal. He's never sold anything in his life, and he's always said he's committed to the Arsenal long term. But if he's ever going to sell, it's going to be now. You've got the fans protesting in utter revolt against the way he's running the club. His ultimate dream of a Super League appears to have been dashed, certainly for now anyway. And that money that was going to bring in, Arsenal are losing money for the first time since he's come in. They're going to lose even more money in the coming year. So if ever he's going to be tempted into selling, it's going to be now. And that's probably why Daniel Ek has decided to make this move right now. I still don't think it's going to be enough, personally. I still think I'd be very, very surprised, just because Stan Kroenke and KSE say that they are absolutely committed to Arsenal. But it's worth a go. If you're a billionaire and you kind of see it, and you see you've got an opportunity, then you're going to go for it. And that's what Daniel Ek has suddenly done right now. The opinionated Gooner, can you see Cohen's... Oh, I've missed that. Hold on, it's gone. Where's that gone? The opinionated Gooner, can you see coexisting with the Cronkies as co-owners? No, absolutely not. No, that's not going to happen. It'll be one or the other. You just think about how determined Stan Kroenke was to see off Usmanov. There was no ever going to be the two of them coexisting together. It's either one or the other, and that will be the case here as well. Midnight Bants, do you think David Dein could come back into the picture? I don't know. I mean, he's in his 70s now, David Dein. I was talking to my dad about this, actually, yesterday. He was asking about David Dein. And, I mean, potentially so. I mean, Darren Dein is Thierry Henry's agent, his best mate, is his best man at his wedding. And Darren Dean's obviously David's son. If Thierry is involved in this, which he is, he's certainly giving his back into it, then Darren Dean's going to know all about it. David Dein will know all about it. Whether he comes back in some sort of capacity, if this goes through, remains to be seen. I mean, it is a possibility because the link is there, but you do wonder, Daniel Ek's going to want to have his own people on board as well. So time will tell on that one. Evan, wouldn't it mean that Thierry, Beckham and Vieira would have to put money in as well? No, I don't think so. I just can't see they'd be putting... What money they got to put in? I mean, yes, they're a lot richer than we are, clearly. They have got a lot of money. They are very rich people, but they're not... When it comes to owning football clubs and football business, no, they're not. They could basically cover about a month's worth of payroll between them, perhaps, at Arsenal, the level that finance is involved. So they're not going to be putting money in themselves. It's just not going to be possible for them. They don't have the money. You've got to be billionaires to be running football clubs nowadays, certainly for clubs like Arsenal, and those two, absolutely not. So, no, I think their involvement is going to be about name. It's going to be about knowing the club, knowing the fan base, getting the fan base on side. It's not going to be down to finances. Freddie, hi Charles. In your opinion, do you think Arsenal will be better off running a self-sustained model or having large investments from the ownership? I have no issue with the self-sustained model. I don't want to see Arsenal totally reliant on one person. We've all had that. We've seen Chelsea, Manchester City. It's not exactly what I want to see. Yes, it'd be great to bring in Mbappe, Neymar, blah blah blah, but realistically, it's not going to happen. And I think Arsenal, you can be successful as a self-sustainable model. You just got to invest wisely. You've got to have clever people at the top of the club. You've got to have owners who care. And that's what, I'm sorry, no matter what the Cronkies say, they don't really care at all. They just want to make sure that their investment is maintained and things like that. But if you've got really switched on people who are right at the heart, who appoint decent people throughout the club in decent positions, then you've got a chance, because Arsenal make enough money to have a good chance of being successful. But like I've said, in the last 6 or 7 years, they've just wasted so much money. They've been run terribly, handled contracts terribly, all that sort of things. That's what the owners, and that's all down to the owners, because the owners, they're absent and they're not running a tight ship over here. They're letting other people do it rather than taking a real close look at it themselves. And that's what I want to see. I want to see a new owner come in who cares about Arsenal, who is hands-on, who appoints the right people, who makes sure the ship runs smoothly, and the money that is spent wisely and spent in a clever fashion. That's not happened under the Cronkies. It's been wasted, and that's their fault, because they've allowed it to happen. So if new owners come in, I don't necessarily think they have to be this type of owners who just spend their own money and that the club becomes totally reliant on them, like we've seen with Chelsea and Abramovich. I have no issue with a self-sustainable model. I like a self-sustainable model. And I do think that Arsenal can still be successful by running by that model. Grumpy Doctor, do you think we'll benefit more if Ek, Usmanov and Dangote co-own Arsenal? No, I just can't see 3 billionaires like that co-owning anything. If you're going to be a billionaire, if you're going to make your money, that sort of money, you've got to be ruthless. You've got to be horrible in a way, to be fair, that they are. I mean, I can't imagine most billionaires have made their money by not being horrible in one way or the other when it comes to business. And I just can't see the three people like that coexisting together. So no, I think you've got to have one person running the ship. Too many people doesn't quite work for me. See, I don't agree with this. Whoever just said that, where did it say it? If we don't win Europa League, no good player will join. I don't believe that, Tom. I think that good players can still join. This is still Arsenal. They're still paying an awful lot of money. Based in London, great stadium, great name. I just don't believe it. I think a lot of good players can join. I also think that you can buy players that don't necessarily have to be massive names and still can take the club forward. So no, I don't agree with that at all. OO says Daniel Ek has changed the music industry. He can easily change Arsenal. He can. Of course he can. He's a successful businessman. I'm sure he could bring new ideas that could freshen up Arsenal, could make it a real success. And again, people that I've spoken to over in Sweden who know him well, who know his business model well, think he could bring some really exciting things to the table. They think he genuinely does love Arsenal. He's a big fan, and so he is going to be emotionally invested in it as well. So absolutely, he could come in and make big things. But unfortunately, there's a big Stan Kroenke shaped figure stopping that at the moment. And unless Cronkie wants to do something and wants to sell the club, then it doesn't matter how much Daniel Ek puts on the table. It doesn't matter how many Invincibles he gets involved. It's just not going to happen. Abe says, hey Charles, do you think Bergkamp could replace Vinay as a CEO if the takeover happens, seeing as Vinay has lost a bit of credibility within the ESL fiasco? It could well be the case. That could be, but is Dennis Bergkamp, how do I put this? Is he business-wise? Is he savvy enough in the business world to be a CEO of a top football club? Just because he's a great footballer doesn't mean he could be a CEO. Could he be a technical director? That sort of thing. You look at that and think that could happen. Obviously, Edu's there at the moment. But in terms of actual CEO business sense, does Dennis have that sort of background? He doesn't really. You wouldn't think. So perhaps not. And that's why I think this is all a bit of a mystery exactly about what these three players do. I saw an interview with Jens Lehmann on Sky Sports today talking about it, and he said kind of what I said. He said it would be fantastic to have my former teammates working for Arsenal again because they're great guys, and probably guys like Thierry Henry, Dennis and Patrick, they're all coaches. So would you see them ending up on the pitch all together? I don't really understand what their jobs would be because there needs to be a good structure from top to bottom, and that's the thing. It's great to have these guys involved. It's great to have their clout behind the bid, but what exactly are they going to do? And we don't know that yet. And until this official bid comes in, until perhaps Daniel Ek sits down and talks about it all, we just won't really know. Will Arteta get sacked if we don't win Europa League, in your opinion? I don't think he will, no. I think Arsenal are still have bought into this project and they'll give Arteta at least another summer, and they'll see how next season goes, even if they don't win the Europa League. I don't think Arteta could have any argument if he was sacked, because results speak for themselves, and Arsenal's league season has been absolutely terrible. Performances have been terrible, but I think there's a acceptance at the club level that this is going to take time, that he needs to be given more transfer windows, that this season is a bit of a freak season anyway in terms of results, and he'll be given more time. So no, I don't think he'll be sacked. Do you think Basuma's price will actually be around 40 million? Sounds bloated to me, says AG. I think it'll probably be around that, just because it'd be English club to English club, new long-term contract. He's young, and so it's just going to be around that sort of 30-40 million pound mark. Masterson, will Daniel Ek invest in the infrastructure at Arsenal? The SO had a financial proposal that would have given funding to outdated training grounds like ours. I think he would come in. Again, speaking to people that I've been speaking to over in Sweden, that if this all went through and was successful, they believe that he would come in and try and put his own stamp on things at Arsenal and reinvigorate the club on and off the pitch. And he's a highly inventive type, innovative, can't even say the word, type of guy. And he would want to come in and freshen things up. So yes, I think he would invest in the infrastructure in and around the club. Hold on, wait. Missed that one. Was this from Freddie? Hi Charles, how would you like to see Arsenal improve in the transfer window this summer? What do you mean, in terms of players or in terms of how they approach the transfer window? In terms of In terms of players, I think they need lots. I think they need a right back. I think you definitely need a replacement there for Hector Bellerin, who I think we're all aware is probably going to move on this summer. I think Arsenal need to try and bring in a very similar type right back to what they have over on the left in Kieran Tierney. I'd like to see a central midfielder come in to play alongside Thomas Partey going forward. Need to sign a striker. That absolutely has to be priority for Arsenal. I think this summer get themselves a new striker. And just bring a real freshness and energy to the squad. So, bring in some young, decent players. And I don't think Arsenal have to do... I think they've got the nucleus of a really good young team to take the team forward over the next few years. But yeah, absolutely. Right back, they need to bring in some sort of left-sided option as a cover for Kieran Tierney. I'm not sure about centre-back at the moment, but I think certainly central midfield, right back, left back, striker are the key things. And obviously, it's great to see that Balogun stayed. A few people are talking about Balogun there. It's fantastic that he signed a contract, and it really did look unlikely that was going to happen. So fair play to Arsenal, fair play to Arteta and Edu for convincing him to stay and turning that round, because it looked like he was definitely going. And so that's really good news for Arsenal. I'm excited to see what happens with Balogun over the coming years, because he just does look like he has something a little bit special about him. Eck worries me. His company Spotify has a bloated stock market valuation. If the tech bubble burst and the share price tanked, it could have a massive impact on Arsenal financially if he bought us. I suppose that is the case, SM, but I suppose you say that about most billionaires who have made their money in one particular field. If something burst, that would happen. But do you really see the tech industry bursting at the moment? I'm not so sure. And from what I've heard, again, from speaking to people in Sweden, he's really trying to branch out at the moment, which is perhaps what this whole Arsenal move is around. He's really sort of getting heavily involved in real estate over there as well. And he's invested in lots of other tech companies and tech industries as well. So I think he's trying to branch out, so he's not just so reliant on one thing as well. So many flicking through. It's hard to actually see. Dominic, hi Charles. Is Josh more invested in Arsenal than his father long term when Josh has full control? Could you see him investing more in the club? I think that's an interesting one. I think Josh basically is running Arsenal anyway. I mean, Stan ultimately have to say, but I think in terms of the day-to-day stuff, when Mikel needs to speak to someone, I think that would be down to Josh. When it comes to the money at the moment, yes, that would be Stan Kroenke making a final decision. But I think when Eddie's trying to speak to someone, when Arteta's trying to speak to someone, say about squad planning, that sort of thing, it will be Josh who they're talking to at the moment rather than Stan. So he is more invested in Arsenal than Stan, absolutely. But when it comes to the big decisions, when it comes to, say, the Super League and whether money's going to be given to particularly, sign a particular player, then that will still be Stan that does make the decision. But that's not, he's in his 70s now. That's not going to last too long. So Josh is certainly the more hands-on person when it comes to Arsenal than his father. Marcus, Josh did not come across at all well. Pandemic, could not meet Zoom teams. Yeah, I agree with that. He didn't come across well at all. Just cannot trust his family. A shame, as they have the money, but they did not invest in our beloved club. I think you speak for pretty much every Arsenal fan there, Marcus. I can't really add too much more to that. I think you're spot on. I didn't think Josh came across particularly well during that Zoom call. Fair play to him. He did actually speak, though, and a lot of other owners haven't done that yet in the sort of fallout of this Super League fiasco. So fair play to Josh for doing that, but I don't think he came across too well in that, I have to admit. Why don't you buy Arsenal, Charles? Freddie Kine. If only I could, mate. Look at the size of my house behind me. I've got 2-bedroom house upstairs. I've got my 2 kids living in a tiny little box room in bunk beds upstairs. Don't quite have enough money to buy Arsenal, I'm afraid. All my money goes on those 2. So yeah, I wish. Maybe one day if this YouTube makes me a billionaire, then it'll happen. I'll invest it back in Arsenal. That would be nice. No, people keep asking, is Arteta going to get fired? I don't think he is. Look, I've said it before, I don't think he could have any complaints if he got fired, because the results speak for itself. But I don't think, even if Arsenal don't go on and win the Europa League, I still think he'll survive this summer. And would be given the start of next season to try and turn things around. Right, I'm going to take a couple more, guys, but then we're coming up to the half an hour mark now, and I've got a big piece that I need to write for tomorrow about the takeover. So I need to get cracking on this. Also an interesting one. Hey, Charles, what do you think will govern Arsenal's transfer policy this coming window? Agent affiliations or analytics? I think it's going to be a bit of both. That's the way Edu runs things at the moment. Obviously, he has his agent connections that he's used a lot, but Arsenal are very heavily influenced by analytics now. At London Colney, that's why they got rid of all their scouting network across the world to rely more on analytics. So I think it's going to be a bit of both this summer. Should we try and look for a Leno alternative, says Tulip. Interesting one. I was earlier on, not too long ago, I was saying that Arsenal shouldn't really worry about a goalkeeper situation. I still don't think they should. I just think there's still more pressing matters within the squad that they need to try and deal with this summer. There's going to be so much to do already. Do they really need to look for a number one? But I am getting a little bit concerned by Leno, who just seems like his confidence has taken a big hit and he's making too many mistakes. We all know that mistake. We all saw that mistake last week. I mean, that was an absolute howler, one of the worst I've seen. And it just seems like there's a bit of a confidence issue going on with Leno at the moment. Not quite looking as solid as he did, certainly last season before the injury. So that is a bit of a worry. But I just think there's so much for Arsenal to do this summer that I think there's more pressing matters than the goalkeeper, because I still think Leno's a good keeper. He just needs to come through this little bit of confidence crisis that he's currently suffering at the moment. Yeah, buy Martinez from Villa for 20 million, says Simon. Yeah, it would be a nice idea, wouldn't it? I think we're all probably sitting here thinking that Arsenal sold the wrong goalkeeper in the summer. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Let me quickly have a look through some of these ones that are popping up. Oh, there's so many. I can't. Shashwata. Hi, Charles. I heard Lewandowski is on the market with lots of clubs interested. If we get Champions League through Europa, how likely would you see him get into Arteta's project? Oh, come on. It's never going to happen. Arsenal are not going to be signing Lewandowski this summer. I think we've all got to lower our expectations a little bit from someone like him. And to be fair, No, look, I'm not going to say I wouldn't want Lewandowski. Of course I do. But I think Arsenal need to start looking at the younger type of player. We've been burnt with signing older players before. We saw it with the awful deal that's brought Willian in last summer. So, I really like someone like Odison Edouard. I just feel like he's a sort of striker that could turn into a real superstar at Arsenal. He's got a huge high ceiling and wouldn't be that expensive this summer. He's the type of forward that I think Arsenal should potentially be looking at this summer. And I know that they are looking at this summer as well. Right, look, I'm going to call time on this now because we are right up to half an hour, guys, and I need to get cracking on some work this afternoon. So thanks for taking part in the Q&A. Appreciate it. As always, we're speaking to Mikel Arteta tomorrow at 9 a.m. That's his press conference. I'm not sure what player we've got yet, but there will be a player speaking after that as well. I'll try and pop on afterwards and do a video discussing what Mikel had to say. Unai Emery speaking to the press at 1 p.m. as well, so that'll be interesting to see what the former Arsenal manager has to say. So keep an eye out on my social media. Find me at Charles_Watts on Twitter, and I'll be doing some updates from the press conference there. And then, as always, I'll try and pop on and record a video as well discussing exactly what was said. So until then, everyone have a very good day. Enjoy the Champions League tonight. Nice little warm-up for the big European competition, which gets underway on Thursday. I think we all know that. But enjoy the little warm-up competition that is the Champions League before that. Have a good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.